Hello and welcome to another episode of the Smaulgld Subscribers Sound Off series. Today I have the pleasure of having on the line Rory Hall. Some of you might know Rory Hall from The Daily Coin. How are you today, Rory?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on there, Lewis.
Well, Rory, you've been very kind to me, and I probably wouldn't have nearly three-quarters of the subscribers I have, but for the exposure that you were kind enough to give me on your channel. So thank you very much. I hope I can repay the favor by giving you some exposure to some of my subscribers that may not have heard of the Daily Coin. Now, Rory, how long?
Let me interrupt
Sure.
real quick. We're going to get you back on over on the Daily Coin before too long, Lewis. So
Oh,
take it
excellent.
away.
All right. So, Rory, I want to go back to your history and how you first got involved with the gold and silver concept and explain to me when it happened, what you started to think about, what were some of the first epiphanies you might have had, or what got you involved in even thinking about gold and silver.
Cliff High, believe it or not, and the WebBot project. I
Okay.
found myself in 2008 out of work, and I was bored. and
Okay.
it's, and for whatever reason, oh, it was on the History Channel. They were rerunning a show that they've since scrubbed from existence. Any mention of Cliff High and the WebBot project, but they mentioned that, so I went to YouTube and I started looking for Cliff High and the WebBot project, and I actually purchased the Alta report at that time. And in the Alta report, he talked about how people should be getting into gold and silver in particular. And he talked about the historic ratio being 16 to 1, and it was currently at 42 to 1. And it was like, okay, so if I make this bet that silver goes back to 16 to 1, I'm going to be pretty wealthy. That's a very significant move. And it's like, I didn't know anything about it, and that's all that I knew.
Hmm.
And so I went out and I bought a significant amount of silver, and then I found Sean over at SGT Report, who I eventually, as a lot of you know, I worked with Sean for about 2 years, and then started the Daily Coin. But throughout all of this, that was the beginning. That's the root of my beginning into gold and silver. So about 8 years ago, 9 years ago, I got into it, and ever since then, I'm a tenacious reader, and I love history. So during all of this time, that's all that I've done is focused on the history of currencies and money and our economy and the financial system. And now here I am today. I'm on your show.
What an achievement. Now, Rory, it sounds like, though, your first uh, introduction was based on, and nothing wrong with this, it wasn't really a philosophical concept. It was more, oh, it looks like silver's undervalued compared to gold, so I might make some money on this. But when did you start to think more about not just making money, but on the concepts behind gold and silver as money, and compared to what had just happened in 2008, where we had the financial crisis, the bailouts, the QE, fiat currencies? When did you start to move into that realm?
It was very shortly thereafter. After I'd read the Alta report, it's like, well, why is this ratio out of balance? And that's when I started really digging in. So I would say, almost immediately I got into the currency and money, and then like I said, I ran into Sean, and I ran into Zero Hedge, and then I ran into Mike Maloney.
Hmm.
And as most of you know, Mike Maloney is a great teacher and historian himself, and a wealth of knowledge, in particular where money and currency are concerned. And I really paid a lot of attention to his work. and I learned a lot about the economics and the financial system through just gobbling up zero hedge, and I would spend probably 4, 5, 6 hours a day just on zero hedge, reading the articles. And this was 2011, 2010, something like that, when I really got into zero hedge. So throughout 2008, 9, and 10 is when I was just really digging in to Mike Maloney's work in particular, and a handful of other people as well.
Okay, I want to talk about that time period. For those who don't remember, the 2009 to 2011 period, when you were gaining all this information, we could probably describe that as the golden period of our lifetimes for the prices of gold and silver. We had almost confirmation that everything you were reading was, look, we're in the middle of this financial crisis. It's based on fiat currency. It's based on central banking abuses. And gold and silver were responding almost as we had expected by going higher. What changed then? And let's continue in your progress in your studies. What changed in 2011, 2012? We're going to get to the cryptos as we get close. We get to, well, we're probably right there around 2011, 2012.
Yeah.
So then what happened, Rory?
Well,
And while you make your analysis, what happened and why do you think these things changed? Did the fundamentals that you learned change? What happened in the market? What happened in people's perception of what was happening in the financial system?
Well, everybody thought that we were saved by the central banks. I mean, that's when QE was introduced, and that's, was around, I think it was 2010 that the first round of QE was introduced, quantitative easing, where, the Federal Reserve stepped in and said, we're just going to start monetizing our debt. Mm-hmm. In other words, we're going to take this illusion of money, this fiat currency, we're going to take it out of our left pocket, we're going to put it in our right pocket, and then we're going to say, see, it's all better. It's like, okay, I'm not seeing how it's all better, but okay, you say that it is. The nation is cheering, MSM, the mainstream media, they're all cheering. Everybody's cheering. We're all saved. I mean, that's about the time that the Time magazine came out with, the banksters saved the world, kind of nonsense. And that's when I knew that if I didn't do something to make some very dramatic changes in the way that I viewed and held and understood money and currency, finance and economics, that me and my family were going to be washed away, period. And that's when my wife kind of freaked out, because I'm making some very traumatic changes in the way that we conduct our lives, the way that we handle our finances. I'm beginning to talk to my extended family, my parents and my brother and my, anybody that would listen. And of course, none of them are listening and they're all getting mad.
Right.
But it's, that's when everything became real. And ever since then, it's been game on. And, that's when cryptocurrencies made their first really big bounce. I think it was 2011 when they, Bitcoin went to 1,100 or something, and everybody was talking about this gaming token. Here's this, it's a token that was developed for gamers to be able to trade gaming cards, and it's like, why do I care? What does that have to do with anything? It's a gaming token. It has to do with gamers that are swapping, cards of Zor and cards of, Theraback or whatever. I don't know. And it's like, I could care less, move on. So
now during that
I didn't pay any attention to it.
Yes, so 2011, 2012, if you start from that point, that's when you'll see the increase in the stock market started to move up and has
Yeah.
continued to move up to this day to record highs, almost 22,000 at the Dow. That's also now you've seen the birth of the cryptocurrencies and basically any asset, almost any asset, any market has gone higher since 2012 to the present day. And the gold and silver have languished, and indeed silver has taken a pretty good dive, and gold has held on a bit, but has also taken a good 25-30% drop. Does this change your perspective on how you value and how you look at gold and silver compared to these big gains we now see in the stock market and also see in the cryptocurrencies?
Yes, it does. It means my perspective changed to the point of going, thank God I have real money. Thank God I have a real store of wealth, because if you look at any chart of the S&P, the Dow Jones, the NASDAQ, any of it, any of this nonsense, then you see a line that's going traveling at about a 45-degree angle straight up, left to right, from 2010 to today. And that's not natural. And anybody that says or believes in that unicorn system, even after Richard Fisher, former Dallas president of the Dallas Federal Reserve, came out and stated on live TV, yes, we did this. We created this. And when he said that was about 2 years ago. It was just like, thank God I have gold and silver. And I still, at that time, you're asking about 2012 or so, I wasn't paying any attention to the cryptocurrencies at all at that time. They were a gaming token. They were something that gamers swapped back and forth, and that was it. And cryptocurrencies crashed, and I was and in relation to what's happening now with gold and silver, I'm grateful that they are where they're priced at, because I can put on more, I can store more of my wealth in something that's real and tangible. If I don't get to utilize it, my family will after I die. I mean, and that's the bottom line.
Right. And what do you say to people who say, well, okay, you have that position, but let's say you had the foresight or you were just interested in trying to maximize your fiat dollars, and you said in 2012, I'm going to invest in stocks, and maybe in 2013, 14, you said, I'm going to take a flyer on Bitcoin, and I'll take those profits, and then I'll move them back into gold and silver. What's your opinion on people who say maybe they wish they had done that?
Well, I would never do that, because there's no integrity in that. There's no integrity in the stock market and Bitcoin, or cryptocurrencies, I should say, as a whole. They are an illusion of a mirage. You have the mirage that is the stock market and fiat currencies like the dollar, the Federal Reserve note, the Japanese yen, and the euro. Those are a mirage. The illusion is cryptocurrencies, which are tied to those currently. You can't have a quote value, end quote, assigned to a cryptocurrency without it being reflected in this mirage called fiat currency. Gold and silver have inherent built-in value. Right now, it's being reflected in those same fiat currencies. However, that throughout history, that's never been. Throughout history, they've always had their own value, where you could take those elements of money and trade them for goods or services, whether it's a cow or a house or farmland or a water system or whatever it was. I mean, it didn't matter. And that was universal. It was wherever you were at.
But
And they went with you.
right, but today it seems that, just use the dollar in its cash form, or even increasingly less in its digital form, that's what people use to transact. So where does gold and silver fit into the monetary system today for purposes of transacting, not just storing wealth?
Well, that's only in the Western world. If you go into the Eastern world, you would find, in particular in India, you would find people that are actually using gold as money.
Hmm.
Farmers take their gold into a gold broker, and they say, I've got, X number of whatever of gold that I would need to put on the market so that I can get seed to plant my field. And the gold broker would go, cool, here's your currency for the seed. Have at it. I'll see you at the end of the season. You can pick your gold back up. No problem.
Well, that would explain then why Indian gold imports and Indian gold demand has remained robust over the last few years. But we're seeing with the U.S. Mint, and I know you follow this, dramatically lower sales in the United States of gold. Is that in part because people are chasing other assets, or because they realize once they have the gold coin, and at least in the Western world, they cannot use it to transact?
Well, you can, but it's primarily would be handled in the same way as they do in India, but it's slightly different. You could take your gold and sell it back into the market, and it just disappears into the market, and you get fiat currency for it. Mm-hmm. And then you can go do whatever you want. In India, it's slightly different. You actually would be more like a pawn shop.
Right.
You would take it and pawn it, and then you would go back and you would get your exact gold back. So they're slightly different, but
it's a bigger infrastructure in India than there is here.
Yes, much bigger.
Trade. Right.
Right. But as far as what's going on over here, I personally see from all indications, what it appears, and there's no way of verifying this, but what appears to be happening is that a lot of funds that should be going into gold and silver are currently going into the cryptocurrencies and draining that. Which, once again, I'm perfectly okay with that, because I've got my eye on the American Gold Eagle half-ounce coin as being the best or the lowest minted coinage ever in the history of the American Gold Eagle program for this year. So is that going to have a premium on it 5 years from now? Probably. Is it going to be pretty hefty? Should be. Don't know that it will be, but
so,
does that answer your question?
It does, and it leads me to the next question, which is, do you think that cryptocurrencies are inherently bad, or do you think they could be used for good or could be used for evil, depending on whose hands they're in?
Both. I think that cryptocurrencies are an extension of the current system that we have in place. I see the current system that we have in place of fiat, paper, primarily plastic, and debit cards and credit cards, moving into a digitized form, and we'll call it cryptocurrency. I see the system that we currently have in place as being inherently evil, a system of debt enslavement, and I see that system transforming into this completely 100% digitized system. Is it going to be called Bitcoin? Probably not. Is Facebook called MySpace? No, it's not. It's called Facebook. So these things change over time.
But is Bitcoin debt-based like the fiat currencies?
Not in my opinion. It's an illusion. There's nothing to it. it's
So does that make
well,
that nothing
no,
worth
no.
more than
In a
fiat?
sense, no. In a sense, it is debt based because its only value, quote value, is derived from debt based fiat currencies.
Explain that.
Okay, so there's nothing. Well, how much is a Bitcoin worth?
Well, you could
What are they selling for?
they
They sell for right now approximately 4,000 Federal Reserve notes. Okay, Federal Reserve notes are debt-based currencies. That's a debt-based fiat currency. So how can Bitcoin be anything but? I mean, unless cryptocurrency brings its own value to the table, like gold and silver, then they're based strictly on whatever somebody says that they are.
Well, let me play devil's advocate. You see these ICOs, and a lot of them are valued mostly in either Ethereum and some of them in Bitcoin. So they don't ask you to send dollars. They ask you to send a certain number of Ethereum in order to get the token. Doesn't that somewhat remove them from the debt-based system and put them in their own world where they're valued against each other?
But what generates that value? Somebody stepped up and said, "Okay, Ethereum, I'll give you $300 for that token,
So
or
you're
I'll give you, 0.008 Bitcoin." What's Bitcoin's value based on? What's Ethereum's value based on? Doesn't matter that the fact that well, we're only going to transact in Bitcoin or Ethereum. Well, so what? Who cares?
well,
You're
isn't that
still
the,
tied. You still got to go back to what their value actually is
but
and
isn't
where their
that
value comes from.
isn't that similar though? What's an ounce of gold?
An ounce of gold is based on sweat. An ounce of gold is based on someone expand or using lots of energy, lots of equipment, lots of time and resources in order to get it out of the ground.
But isn't an ounce of gold $1,300 as well? And also, the next question is, because what I'm saying is I think we all look at things in terms of fiat, and that would include gold or silver. But I was listening to Steve St. Angelo today talking to Sean SGT Report. He was mentioning it cost $1,500 to mine a Bitcoin. Does that give it value in the same way that it costs $1,200 to pull gold out of the ground per ounce?
Possibly. I mean, I would say if you were in order to compare apples to apples, I would say yes.
But can you compare apples to apples? Is Bitcoin just digital gold, or is it something else?
That's above my pay grade. I don't know. I can't answer that. I mean, my opinion is that I don't want anything to do with digital currencies.
That would include fiat currencies that are being digitized at the moment.
Correct. I don't want anything to do with them.
What about digitized gold? What's your stance on that? For example, gold money.
Well, we were talking about this before we started recording, and I agree with what you presented, that gold money would be the equivalent of what was happening 300 years ago. Here's a gold broker that issues you a certificate that says you have X number of gold units in this account. They're verified. They are audited on a regular basis by a third-party auditor. And yes, you do in fact have X number of gold in your account. So you can spend that in whatever way you wish.
Which is easier than what the Indians do, where they have to go down to the village and exchange their gold.
Yes. So that system I don't really have an issue with because once again it's based on gold. It's not based on an illusion or a mirage. So I don't have a problem with something being in digital form. What I have a problem with is this this creep that we're seeing, and the cryptocurrencies are fueling that fire in such a way that I don't think anybody foresaw at all that we were going to wake up one morning and it was going to be cryptocurrencies as far as the eye could see, as far as all the headlines being captured,
So,
all the ICOs that are coming out, the sheer volume. You know, we're looking at upwards of 1,100 different cryptocurrencies on the market right now. There's something like three new ones a day, every day coming online. I mean, I don't think anybody foresaw that, and I think that's pushing our world into into a completely cashless society. And that's my biggest fear, Lewis, because once we get into a cashless society, forget it.
so
Forget it.
do you think then that cryptocurrencies are merely an extension and an enabler of fiat currencies to push us into a cashless digital society?
Yes, 100%.
And do you think there can be digital currencies that are outside of that fiat system?
Possibly. I mean, once again,
You're playing on the same
go,
field, is
what,
what you're saying. If
what,
even if it's
well,
outside the system.
I love gold money for this reason. Gold money works within the current system that we have. It does all of its transactions are across MasterCard. Okay, so the MasterCard system is out there. It's global. Transactions are generated exactly like every other transaction. The difference is I'm using a goldsmith. We'll call them gold money, as opposed to Federal Reserve notes operated by a bunch of criminals.
But isn't MasterCard owned by a bunch of criminals? I mean, aren't you just enabling the system, even though it's gold, but it's run through MasterCard and it's still part of the entire, I would call that part of the entire fiat system, MasterCard.
How do we get away from it?
Well, not by going through MasterCard, I would imagine.
Well, but my question is, do we develop our own system like Russia and China have done? Do we, I mean, like, have the Rory and Lewis, payment system? I mean, and what's the alternative? What is the answer? I mean,
Well,
and this is a really important question. And what you just brought up is the crux of the problem is that we are captured. We are captured in a system that is getting more and more difficult to get out of every single day, period.
but isn't something like a cryptocurrency, like the one Steve St. Angelo, I haven't examined it, it's commodity exchange, I'm not sure if that's the name of it. Isn't that something that's designed to take the gatekeeper away and to be outside of the system?
What's outside of what system?
Well, in other words, you don't, not just in the monetary system, but in the system that we have currently of gatekeepers of Google, Facebook, Apple, where you move using cryptocurrency, you move out of one dominated system and then you say you create your own. I mean, I think cryptocurrencies might be able to pull you out of the fiat system, even if they're based on the fiat system, meaning they derive their value, what you're saying. But that's the same as gold money. If gold money is deriving its value from gold but converted into fiat, couldn't you create cryptocurrencies that don't derive, that are derived, their value is separate and outside of the major systems? For example, this commodity coin where the value is in the advertising, but it's outside of the Google system. The ad
So that's
system.
a good question. I mean,
Would you be
Is it
opposed?
possible? I mean,
Well, what I'm saying
I,
is, would you then still be opposed to it as being part of this whole digital system that you're saying enslaves humanity? Is it possible that it
where do these systems live? Do they live on the internet? Is that right?
always? I mean, that's a given.
Always. Okay.
Electricity, internet. I mean, you can't get away from those.
I'm not concerned with electricity, although it can be manipulated as well. But the internet is changing.
Hmm.
The internet is going to change, and when 5G, the Internet of Things, is rolled out, from everything that I can understand it thus far, is that it's going to be a completely different system, and that it's going to not be what we have today. And what I'm currently researching is quantum computing and supernodes, international supernodes, and regional nodes, which are all connected. And I'm not concerned with the architecture or the technology in it. I'm concerned with who has them, what purpose are they being used for, why do we need them, what's running across them, and more importantly, what's not running across them. Because if everything runs through these international supernodes and regional nodes, then we could have some very serious issues. We could have ways, I'm sorry, the people that are building these systems could put in FedCoin. FedCoin replaces cryptocurrency, all of them. And FedCoin has a certificate, an information packet attached to it that says at Amazon, at Walmart, at McDonald's, wherever, Joe's Fish Hut, I don't know, that says that if you are on this system and it doesn't have this certificate of authenticity that says this is a Fed coin, then it's rejected. It's not that I'm getting into somebody's wallet, or that I'm identifying someone's wallet and keeping it out. I don't need that. All I have to do is put up a piece of information that says reject everything except this. All that I have to do. It's called a firewall.
Hmm.
I mean, everybody's familiar with a firewall. I mean, it's what keeps people out of your computer that you don't want in your computer messing around with it. So it's not any different. So it's not that I, that my Bitcoin wallet is going to be hacked and I'm going to be this and that, and it's unnecessary. It's completely unnecessary.
So what advice would you give to people who have realized the value of gold and silver, but are basically now throwing in the towel and saying, I got to make some money. I'm going to buy this latest ICO. I'm going to buy this cryptocurrency.
Why not go buy some heroin and sell it?
So,
What's the difference? I mean, to me, there's no difference, because if I'm enabling a system that I can look at and go, okay, this looks incredibly dangerous. It looks like it's something that's working against me. And if it achieves what it appears to, if the goal is achieved that I see that it's trying to achieve, then I'm toast.
but do you think that people see that? I don't think
No.
well, it must be because
No,
I think people
well,
see that dealing
let
in
me ask-
heroin is a problem. Not only is it illegal, it causes damage. I don't think the people that are moving into cryptos see this as an issue the way you do, and they also, since it's not illegal, they don't have the same moral qualms with it as
It's
perhaps
not
do.
illegal yet. Cryptocurrencies are not illegal yet. Okay. Because right now there's only two countries that I'm aware of, and that's Japan and Australia, that have said, yeah, Well, Bitcoin, no, none of the other 1,000+ cryptocurrencies are recognized as currency. Only Bitcoin. Okay, Japan and Australia are both lapdogs to the uh, shadow government of the U.S. Period. I mean, if and I've said this on numerous occasions that if Japan was ordered to cut off half of the country, cut off half of the island, and kick it off into the ocean, they would do it. They would do
How
it.
fast can we get that done?
How give me how big a chainsaw can you get me, and how quick? And Australia is about the same. I mean, they're not any different. You know, no offense to any of the Japanese nationals or Australian nationals. I'm not attacking you, but these are just facts. I mean, it's just the way that it is, unfortunately. So,
So you think you're
uh,
digging, you're working at cross purposes by buying cryptocurrencies or getting involved in them?
yes. How can you support a system of sound money, honest money, while at the same exact time going, I'm going to chase this illusion and support that system that looks evil. It looks evil. So I don't see how those two can coexist. They don't coexist in my world at all. I mean, I'm sorry, and I don't mean any offense. This is just the way that I see it. I mean, I'm not trying to beat up on anybody or say you're wrong for doing that. You go live your life the way that you want to live your life.
No, that's that's really what the heart of this is. It's not just about cryptocurrencies. It's about everything that's going on in the world right now. There's definitely too much of other people trying to tell you what opinions you can have, what opinions you can't have, and basically it gets to the point where they just want to shut you down and tell you you can't have the opinion. And I know, Rory, that you've always been not necessarily very open-minded towards everyone's opinion, but you've always been very respectful of others' opinions. And I think that's what more people need to be. Is some people, they love cryptocurrencies, and some people dislike cryptocurrency. Some people love gold. You know, we've talked about this. There are people out there that absolutely abhor gold. We see it in the media.
Yes.
They demonize gold. And you know what?
Yes.
They're entitled to their opinion. And
Right.
you're entitled to debate them. Roy, I want to thank you. Anything else on your mind before we get off the line?
No, I think I've said enough.
Well, Rory, thank you very much for your insights, and I hope to have you back on the Smaulgld subscribers sound off series. And by the way, we're now opening it back up. Anyone who's been on the show before, I welcome you to come back. I've taken all requests. I think we've done about 16 of these interviews. I wanted to get through everyone who wanted to be on first before we bring guests back, but this is now a call. If you've been on the show before, or if you haven't been on the show before, please send a request and we'll get you on. Thank you very much.